All right, so today I'm going to be making some sausage gravy and biscuits, but I thought since I already made biscuits with butter and regular sweet milk, this time I'm going to make biscuits with lard and buttermilk, which is another great way to make biscuits. There's just a little difference when you make them this way, but I figured I'd go ahead and show you. So I'm actually going to break this into two parts. So this is going to be the biscuits, and then I'll do a separate video on the gravy, so that way if you already know how to make biscuits and you don't care about the biscuit part, you can just watch the sausage gravy part. So, but to make the delicious buttermilk biscuits, you're going to use the same ingredients all the way around. You're going to use about, well, this would be enough for 2 or 3 people. You're going to use about 2 cups of self-rising flour, and of course I have my delicious, wonderful daily bread flour, which I always will use as long as they make it. I just refilled my flour canister, so it's a little full. It's hard to get the flour out. There we go. So the one difference when you're making this with buttermilk as opposed to sweet milk is you're going to add 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. So let me get my baking soda. And it has to do with the acidity of the buttermilk and making sure that it doesn't inhibit the rise from the baking powder. So you add the baking soda to get the pH level more in line with what it needs to be for that nice fluffy rise. It's another one of those sciencey things that I don't fully understand, but I know you're supposed to do it. I'm going to get a fork. Let me get a fork and just cut that in. Now I'm going to get my lard. It's about the same amount of lard as I would use of butter. Normally I would be using about 5 or 6 tablespoons of butter, so I'm going to use about that much lard. And I just kind of eyeball it. I know that 4 tablespoons is about 1/4 cup, so I'm going with about that much. That looks to me like it's probably about 5 or 6 tablespoons. Well, maybe a little bit more. There we go. And then I'm just going to cut this into the flour. And what we're looking for is to get the flour sort of like a coarse cornmeal texture. We're just wanting to get those little bits of lard all distributed all throughout the flour. All right, that's pretty good. Now I'm going to add about 2/3 cup of buttermilk. And I'm going to tell you a helpful tip about buttermilk that you may not know. If you're running low on, if you have buttermilk, and you can buy it in small quantities, I usually buy it in small quantities, but then I'll go a long time and I won't even have any. But if I want to have more buttermilk, when you get low in the container of buttermilk, make sure it says cultured buttermilk. Okay, you want it to be cultured buttermilk. See that? It says cultured. When you're starting to get low in your bottle of buttermilk or your carton of buttermilk, say to about there, so that you have at least probably about 1/2 cup left, you can refill this with regular milk. If you fill this up with milk and then set it on your refrigerator overnight into the next day, as much as 24 hours, the cultured buttermilk in here is going to actually culture the rest of the milk, so you will replenish your buttermilk supply. So that's just a helpful little tip that you may not know. There's really no reason to run out of buttermilk unless you just don't use it very often. And I'm going to be honest, I used to use it a lot more than I do now. I just don't use it as much anymore, but that is something that when I used to use it more, I would definitely do. I would definitely refill my buttermilk once it started getting low with just regular milk and leave it out, close it up and leave it on top of the refrigerator for 12 to 24 hours. And you'll know when it's ready because it will have thickened up. It won't be just real, you know, thin liquid like regular milk is. It'll be thickened up like buttermilk should be. Now, what's my rule about biscuits? If you've watched my other biscuit video for the fluffy biscuits every time, or if you've watched the sweet potato biscuits video, I always say one of the biggest mistakes I see on YouTube for biscuits is people kneading their biscuit dough, and you do not knead your biscuit dough. You do not want to overwork your biscuit dough. You just want to get the ingredients incorporated so that everything holds together. And I'm going to get this off of there. And in this case, because I put that little bit of extra lard in there, I think it's definitely going to hold together well. In fact, I might end up adding a little bit more flour. And that's one of those things you just kind of have to you'll get a feel for it when you start to make biscuits, is what the dough is supposed to feel like. But in any case, you're going to always use a light hand with it. You're not going to be kneading it. Oh, this might be fine. As long as it picks up that flour down there at the bottom of the bread tray. And one thing about this kind of bread tray, these are, I don't remember if I've mentioned this in another video, but these bread trays are a very traditional thing here, at least in Eastern North Carolina. I'm assuming throughout the state, and it might be even throughout the South, but nobody makes them anymore. If they do, please leave. If you know of somebody who makes these, please leave it in the comments below, because all the craftsmen I know of who used to make them, like around Craven County and Beaufort County area, they're gone. They've either died or they're just not making them anymore. But they're made out of tupelo, and tupelo trees are definitely something that you find in the swampy areas of Eastern North Carolina. It's a very lightweight wood. It's not a heavy wood at all. And I think it's a soft carving wood. And so it has just always been ideal for these bread trays. And both of my grandmothers had these kind of bread trays, and my mom gave me this one. And I absolutely love it. And I know that using a wooden bread tray in general is a very, very old thing, but I'm speaking specifically about the tupelo bread trays. Okay, so this is done. And I've talked before, I think also, about you can just pinch your biscuits off like this and roll them out, but because I just like my biscuits to look a certain way a lot of times, so I'm going to use my little cookie cutters, biscuit cutters, and get them that way. Sprinkle a little bit of flour on this board. Get that out of the way. Get my pan. This pan was my grandmother's, and it has definitely seen better days, but I love it. So this is what I continue to use for making biscuits, because it's the perfect size. I just like to line it with a little bit of parchment before I put my dough in there. Let me get this pressed out. Let me get this angled so you can see a little bit better. There we go. And normally you would be getting about eight or nine biscuits out of this dough if I use my smaller cutter. But in this case, because I'm going to be using it for biscuits and gravy, this is probably really going to be good for really 2 people or 3 if you've got a child who might just have 1 biscuit. I'm going to be using a larger biscuit cutter just because that's the way I like it for the gravy. So And I've got my oven really hot. That's one of the keys to having perfect fluffy biscuits every time, is you want a very hot oven, at least 450 degrees. Because otherwise your biscuits are going to cook too long and they are going to end up kind of tough, and or kind of overdone, because they're going to have to bake too long before they're totally done. So they're not going to have that nice cooked outside, baked outside, and fluffy, tender inside. So you definitely want a very hot oven. And my oven's been heating for a while, so it's not like I'm putting it into a barely hot oven. It's an oven that's been hot for a while, so I can't stress that enough. I might actually get a 6th biscuit out of this. There we go. Just sort of lightly press it in there. There we go. So I'm going to get these in the oven. I'm going to bake them for probably about, well, my oven's unreliable. Really, in a lot of ovens, you'd probably be able to bake them in 10 or 11 minutes, but in mine, it seems like it takes about 13 to 15 minutes sometimes. So I'm going to put this in my oven, and while these are baking, I'm going to get the sausage ready and then show you about how to make the sausage gravy. All right, the biscuits are ready. There they are. They are perfect, perfect, perfect. So this is buttermilk biscuits, y'all. This is exactly how you make them. They're nice and fluffy, just like the ones in the other video. I'm gonna get these served up with some sausage gravy right now. Get this nice biscuit. Oh, this is hot, y'all. You probably can't see it, but there's steam coming off of that. It's perfect. Add a little bit of this delicious sausage gravy. And there we have it. Delicious biscuits with sausage gravy. Buttermilk biscuits with sausage gravy. This is out of this world. I'm going to give it a little taste right now. Oh my goodness, y'all. That's so, so, so good. I hope you enjoy this video, and you know the routine if you do. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.